Here is the beginning of a fascinating story. It is going to lead up to Narad Muni getting cursed by Prajapati Daksha. But right now we are learning the whole setup, how that is leading in that direction. So we saw how Prajapati Daksha, in order to increase the population, went through a severe austerity. He also got the benediction from the Supreme Lord. And in one sense, Daksha is totally engaged in his service of expanding the population. So, to increase the population, Prajapati Daksha begot 10,000 sons. And those 10,000 sons were called Haryaśvas. As we know, Daksha is expert in expanding population. So, 10,000 sons, to produce 10,000 sons is not such a big deal for him. And the sons of Daksha, the Haryaśvas, they were all gentle and obedient, and they were ready to carry out any order from their father. So, father's order is to beget children for them. In order to do that, the sons, the Haryaśvas, they first headed west to perform austerities at Narayansaras. Narayansaras is a holy place inhabited by the sages where the river Sindhu meets the sea. And just with a touch of the holy place, as well as bathing in the river, they all became completely purified. So now, as they became purified, the Haryashvas, they became inclined towards the activities of Paramhamsas. Nevertheless, their father had ordered them to increase the population. They performed severe austerities to fulfill his desires. Now, one day, the great sage Narada saw those boys performing such fine austerities to increase the population. And seeing that, Narad approached them. So Narad used some cryptic words to discourage the Haryashvas from following their father's order. Now, here is an interesting point, that is this the right thing to do on the part of Narada? Because after all, the Supreme Lord has approved Daksha's desire to increase the population, and therefore the order that Daksha had given to his sons, the Haryashvas, were perfectly in alignment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, so is Narada doing something wrong in interjecting the natural flow for the Haryashvas? So let's look at the purport to 6 through 8. So Prabhupada addresses this issue. So he writes, Narad Muni saw that the boys known as the Haryashvas were already purified because of living in that holy place and were practically ready for liberation. Why then should they be encouraged to become entangled in family life, which is so dark that once being entered it, one cannot leave it? Through this analogy, Narad Muni asked them to consider why they should follow their father's order to be entangled in family life. Narad Muni advised the Haryashvas not to enter the household life. Since they were already advanced in spiritual knowledge, why should they be entangled in that way? So Narad Muni, look at the words of Narad Muni. Okay. He speaks, My dear Haryashvas, you have not seen the extremities of the earth. There is a kingdom where only one man lives, and where there is a hole from which, having entered, no one emerges. A woman there who is extremely unchaste adorns herself with various attractive dresses, and a man who lives there is her husband. In that kingdom, there is a river flowing in both directions, a wonderful home made of 25 materials, a swan that vibrates various sounds, an automatically revolving object made of sharp razors and thunderbolts. You have not seen all this, and therefore you are inexperienced boys without advanced knowledge. How then will you create progeny? Just imagine listening to this, somebody coming and speaking these words. I don't think I would have understood anything out of this. But because these boys, these 10,000 sons of Daksha, they're super intelligent and at the same time completely purified, they totally decoded the message and understood what Narad Muni was trying to say. And the rest of the section is going to focus on understanding each of these 10 topics that are brought out through this enigmatic description of Narad Muni. But ultimately, Narad Muni is saying that you do not know how to understand the material existence. So, we are not going to decode the whole thing today, but we are going to see that come through tomorrow onwards. But we saw that in the 11th verse, at least we can begin to understand this. So, first of all, the word that is used by Narad Muni is Antam Bhu, okay, in the 6 to 8. Okay. So he says that you have not seen all this, and therefore you are inexperienced boys without advanced knowledge. The specific first, you can say, first part of his expression was Antam Bhu, which means the extremities of the earth. So then, in the 11th verse, this is how the Haryaśvas were processing it. The word Bhu, or the earth, refers to the field of activities. The material body, which is a result of the living being's actions, is his field of activities and gives him false designations. Since time immemorial, he has received various types of material bodies, which are the root of bondage, which are the roots of bondage to the material world. If one foolishly engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not look toward the cessation of this bondage, what will be the benefit of his actions? So, this is how they process just that phrase. And this 11th purport, Prabhupada writes that this is a very important verse. Since all the living entities in the material world are very active, having obtained their particular types of bodies, a man works all day and night for sense gratification. And animals like hogs and dogs also work for sense gratification all day and night. Birds, beasts, and all other conditioned living entities engage in various activities without knowledge of the soul encaged within the body. Especially in the human form of body, one's duty is to act in such a way that he can release himself from this engagement. But without the instructions of Narad or his representative in the disciplic succession, people blindly engage in bodily activities to enjoy Maya Sukh, flickering temporary happiness. They do not know how to become free from their material engagement. And then Prabhupada cautions that Maya is very, very strong. She is expert in putting impediments in the way of this understanding. Therefore, sometimes one comes to the Krishna consciousness movement, but again falls into the clutches of Maya, not understanding the importance of this movement. So in this way, just from one phrase, that anta bhu, which is that you don't understand the extremities of the earth, Haryaśvas decoded the whole messages encapsulated within it. That that as long as we are living in this material world, encased within this material covering of this body, um, we are going to continue on this journey, which is essentially acting as the root of our bondage to this material world, which is the performance of temporary fruitive activities. And if one foolishly engages in such temporary fruitive activities and does not look toward the cessation of this bondage, then what would be the benefit of any action that is performed? And that is the first of the 10 things that Narad Muni spoke. And we're going to continue with this decoding of the message as Haryaśvas processed it. And I really find this one very interesting because when our heart is connected with the heart of our teacher, there are messages that we can pick on without actually necessarily too much elaboration. So here Narad Muni spoke enigmatic words, but Haryaśvas totally got it because their hearts were connected with sage Narada. So we'll continue. Thank you very much for joining.